Okay, here we are. Good morning. As we're learning the Maamer, LoSihiyeh Mishakela. Today, I think we'll be reading mostly from lessons in Sefer HaMaamarim. This is a wonderful Sefer. So here is what we are up to. Last week, on Friday, we left off in a very, very, very powerful part of the Maamer where I gave the introduction that at that point, the Rebbe started crying audibly, and the Rebbe had to stop at one point in the saying of this section, which we're going to get to today, and he actually put his holy head down on the table and cried loud sobs. After a few moments, he picked up his head again and then continued the Maamer. That said, because it was said amidst sobs, there are certain sections of what we're about to learn that are missing parts because they weren't able to hear it clearly enough to be able to write down what it was said. So it's this is the most powerful, at least in my opinion. This Maamer is life-changing, and I suggest learning it at least every few years, if not every year. But to this particular section is even more of like a powerful and an emotional and like a really, I guess, life-changing, for lack of better terminology, section of the Maamer. So we left off by explaining that. So we went back into the right. So the way the structure of a Maamer, or usually Sichas, also goes is that there's a question at the beginning. There's a lot of explanation to understand and to change our perspective. And once you have that change of perspective, then you're able to understand the answer and it all clicks and makes sense. So seemingly there are things that don't add up. And then the Rebbe explains and takes us through a whole, ride, so to speak, and we discuss different things through different perspectives. And then by the end of it, with that newfound perspective, suddenly, the question that we had gets resolved. So it's the same thing with this Maamer. At the beginning, we had a question as to whether, we have to do certain things, and by doing those certain things, Hashem will bless us. So then we had a question about, it led to a certain section which we helped us discuss. What does it mean to do our part, to do avodah, to do our part towards to do what Hashem needs from us? And so how could you say that Hashem needs us? And then we worked on explaining that Hashem what we do does affect Hashem, and it does make a difference. Don't just think you were sent into this world to use your time and that's just it. You were sent into this world to use your time wisely, and with that time, we were meant to fill it. And that's the section we're getting to now. I mean, there's a lot more in the Maamer, and it's very, very, very powerful Maamer. So I suggest learning it at least once a year, if not more, at least once every few years. But the section we're up to is where the Rebbe brings up this part of the pasuk, which says, "I shall fill the number of your days." And we explained that the Eibusher created time, and everything that was created needs to be elevated. And so too with our concept of time. Every single thing that we create has to be elevated. And meaning every single thing that Hashem created, it has to be elevated, which means the concept of time for us isn't just a thing that happens. Isn't just, this moment and the next moment and the next moment after that. They're all going to be, there's always going to be time, and we can, so to speak, take time for granted. In reality, time is a created existence, and so therefore, the Eibusher wants us and expects us to use that time to elevate that time, just like anything else in the world that we are expected to use and to elevate. So it explains that every single person needs to think on a constant basis that their days are counted. We have a fixed number of days in which we're sent on a mission. We were brought here into this world on a mission with a specific number of days, no more and no less. And not only that, but every single one of those moments, every single one of those days, every single hour, every single second needs to be filled to use and used for the purpose of that mission. So our lives need to be in a constant awareness that time isn't just to be taken for granted. Time is counted for. Time is a beautiful opportunity that Hashem gave us to make an impact in our world. And so too, we gave an example about Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. The day he passed away, his students came to visit him, and they found him crying and sobbing away. And they asked him, Rabbi, why are you crying? And he says, I realized that my entire life I've been, that's not what he said. But what he said, which is, I don't know which path I'm being led to, which meaning he didn't realize, he doesn't know for a fact, so to speak, if he's going, God willing, to heaven, or chas v'shalom, his neshama is gonna have to go through a cleansing process called Gehenna, right? So he didn't know. Meanwhile, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, it says that he was so holy, he didn't waste a single minute of his life. His entire life was filled by perfecting, not perfecting, I don't like that word, but by improving, machshava, divrei, ma'aseh, the three things that you're meant to be taking care of during the day, during your time, right? He excelled at it. So how is it possible that he's bawling his eyes out, unsure which way he's going? So the Rebbe explains that one of the opinions of what was going on is that he spent so much time busy with his shlichus. He was a shliach in his lifetime. He was the nasi adar of that time period. And he was so busy and he was so empowered by doing what he needed to do that he didn't take the time to sit back, relax, and say, wait a minute, where am I holding? How am I in a high madrega? Am I a high level? Am I in a low level? How am I doing in relation to life? So he didn't take that time. So when it came the time right before, passing, he had to think about it and say, wait a minute, where am I going? Because that was the time when he the rest of the time he was busy doing what he needed to do. So I spoke about this example because my husband and I, when we were learning this together, we were bringing about it. And we said a good example of this is somebody, on the front lines, on a soldier in the front lines. Imagine that you're a soldier on the front lines. You have a guard post, and you see the enemy approaching, and you're doing what you need to do. You're whether you're shooting or whatever it is that you need to be doing at that point in time. You're doing your job, and somebody comes over and says, hey, so how do you feel you're doing? On a scale from 1 to 10, how do you feel like you're doing? We don't have the time to stop there and think about, where am I holding? How am I doing? How is everything going? You have to do what you need to do. The army is expecting you to be taking care of your job at this point in time. It's not time to take a moment and take a break and relax and say, how am I doing? So we need to live with this concept of, what does the Eibusher want from me at this point in time? What does Hashem want from me at this moment? And whatever that is I need to be doing, I need to be doing. Let's not sit and contemplate, what's the this and what's the that, or the opposite. I mean, we already spoke about this 2 ICAs ago about, or we could just spend that time scrolling through our phone, scrolling through social media, watching ridiculous YouTube videos, whatever it is. That's not taking care of the mission Hashem sent you to do at that point in time. Okay, so that's where we left off. Now, we are on page 162 of Lessons in Sefer HaMaamarim, and we are on the bottom where it starts, in the English it starts if the above, right? So I'm going to continue. If the above was true of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, how much more so does it apply regarding an ordinary individual? He should have no feelings of relaxing. This is not like a, party over here, because he knows that he must fulfill his mission every moment. What does this mean? This isn't meant to be, and again, in context of everything we've said until now, right? We're talking to someone who is hopefully already, opened up the quote unquote womb, right? Opened up their vessel to be able to receive and say, what's my mission now? So it doesn't mean run around like a crazy chicken without a head. It means that you've already done the previous step, which was, okay, Hashem, I need to be sensitive to what you need of me. Not what I want, even if it's in Kedusha things. Maybe I want to daven all day by Avodah, and I want to ignore, making lunch and dinner or taking care of my job or paying bills. I just want to live. There's a concept of mufshit. I want to live, disconnected. I want to close my eyes and pretend I'm in Tzfas, and that's where I am. That's what you want, and that fills your vessel so much with your own desires that you're not able to be sensitive to listen to what Hashem is asking of you. So what we're saying here is somebody who's already been sensitive enough to hear the call of Hashem, to hear the call of, your particular shlichus in this world. Once you filled your day with your particular shlichus, whether it's taking care of your family, whether it's taking care of your job, whether it's paying bills, whether it's adding extra time, making sure not to waste time on, silly other things, and adding extra time for Torah learning and for really connecting your neshama to what's net, to source. So once you know that, so now we don't just sit around and say, wow, that's awesome. Because the moment we sit around and we say, wow, that's awesome, and we stop being sensitive to what's the next call, there's a famous story of Rebbe Nissim Nemenov, I'm pretty sure, who was a mashpia in very, very famous mashpia in Lubavitch Yeshiva. And at one point he was not complaining, he would never complain, but at one point he was speaking to the Rebbe and asking for advice how to inspire the Bachrim, because he's from an older age and it's a different style than passed away, but I'm saying than the more modern Bachrim that he was dealing with at that point. And the Rebbe said, you have to do what I do. What do? I look at a person and I see their full potential. Then I take half of it and then I ask them to do it. So first of all, that's like intense. The reality to think that sometimes we hear all these amazing stories of the Rebbe pushing people, do more. Somebody walks past dollars. Oh, we got 5,000 people to light Shabbos candles, and the Rebbe says, okay, now I want you to get 10,000. So what the Rebbe is asking of us is really only half of what he knows we can accomplish, which means how much more so we can live with this inspiration of, wow, I am absolutely incredible and I can accomplish even more. I can do even more. I can fit more in the time that I think I don't have, right? And it's a very, very powerful thing. Okay. If one moment passes in which he is not carrying out his tasks, right? And again, we're not talking about regular, if there's two levels. The last level we spoke about in previous classes, right? About being sensitive. And it's very possible that most of us are living on that level, that we're not necessarily always sensitive to what the call of the Eibusher is. We don't always know exactly what our shlichus is meant to be at that time. And so we need to work on that level. But now we're speaking to somebody who's already sensitive to what their call is, and they need to have this mindset. If one moment passes in which he is not carrying out his tasks, then not only has he failed to use an opportunity that has been granted to him to flourish in his divine service, so he failed to use that opportunity, but also in this moment, when he does not carry out his tasks, he has rebelled against God, the King of Kings. And at this point in the Maamer, it's not the end of the sentence, but at this point in the Maamer, the Rebbe couldn't stop crying. It was such a strong that he actually put his holy head down on the table and he cried. And it's a very powerful thing to think about. And it's a very powerful thing to intake. This nothing, and I've given this introduction for this Maamer several times, that nothing in this Maamer is meant to be negative. Nothing in Chassidus is meant to be negative. So this isn't an excuse for Yetzer Hara to come and say, I did all these things wrong, chas v'shalom, and so therefore I'm rebelling against the king. It's adding a sensitivity to our lives. It's adding a level of sensitivity that we are brought into this world to accomplish something with our time, and that something is so important that if we don't, not only do we miss the opportunity, chas v'shalom, we could be doing something that goes against Hashem, and it's a painful thing. So then after a few moments of crying, the Rebbe picked up his holy head and continued. In failing to fulfill the mission with which he has been charged, right? So what did we do? We chas v'shalom, not us, chas v'shalom. So this person, he not only missed the opportunity, but he actually chas v'shalom has rebelled against the king, the God, King of Kings, and failing to fulfill the mission for that moment with which he has been charged. As a result of contemplating this, not only will a person have no feelings of self-satisfaction, not just self-satisfaction, meaning aggrandizement, like they feel so haughty and so, wow, I'm doing a great job. Why? Because you don't have time to sit down and think, oh, wow, this is so amazing. You're doing your next mission, right? Alluded to in the term in your land, in the above pasuk, artzcha, your land, shares the same root letters as ratzon, will. On the contrary, were someone to ask him, what is happening with your land? In other words, your will, he will bitterly call out, do I care about my will? Do I care about my pleasure? What about love? What about fear, right? So he's so focused. He's such a soldier doing what he needs to do at the next point that someone's going to come and ask him, oh, how are you doing? How do you feel like you're self-satisfied? And he's like, what do you mean? I'm doing what I meant to be doing. The Eibishter wants me to do this. I need to do it. Go, let's continue on. Let's continue on. And it's very interesting to hear. Check the time. Interesting to hear all these stories about, shluchim, chas v'shalom, that are even not just shluchim, but a lot of people that are dealing right now with this illness that, Mitzvah Hashem, everyone should be healed, and Mashiach should be here right now, and, we close hospitals because we don't need them anymore. So all of this, a lot of stories are coming out of people, when they wake up and they're like, oh, when's Pesach? And it's so powerful to think that somebody was in such a state and, was in a ventilator, and the first thing they think about when they wake up is when's Pesach. And this is actually this story that somebody I know personally. And it's amazing how many of us really live with this concept of what's my next shlichus. How can I take care of the next thing that I need to do? How can I take care of what's my purpose? What's my, where does Hashem need me now? He will bitterly call out, I said this already, right? How can he think about spiritual levels when at every moment he must be on guard to ensure that, heaven forbid, not one moment will pass in rebellion against the king, chas v'shalom, by failing to fulfill the mission demanded on him at that particular moment, right? So as we said, that the Rebbe put down his holy head, and at this point it was mid-sob, so there are certain parts in this section of the Maamer that we may not be able to know exactly how the Rebbe said it. When a person carries out the charge, quote, there will not be a woman who loses her young or who is barren in your land. In other words, he does everything possible to see to it that, as explained previously, his divine service will be characterized by genuine love and awe and fear, and that it will continue and thrive, right? So we spoke about this in the previous sections of the Maamer, what that all means. As a result of his lack of self-satisfaction, as explained above, he is promised blessings from above. And again, we're talking about Atzmus u'Mahos Ein Sof. We're talking about he's getting blessings not just from the level of Seder Stalshus, but even beyond. The essence of Hashem is going to give us blessings when we live life in this way. Blessings being, there will not be a woman who loses her young or who is barren in your land. And now we're not talking just spiritually, we also mean physically. So for us to be living in such a level can bring blessings for the entire world, obviously in addition to our own personal lives. Okay, summary. Feelings of self-satisfaction can be prevented from arising by contemplating that every person has been given a fixed number of days, no more and no less, and that every day, every moment, and every hour must be used to fulfill his mission in this world. When a person contemplates this, so we have to live with this mindset, we have to contemplate it so we can think about it and internalize it, he will be preoccupied with the fulfillment of his mission and will not have a chance to think about his own spiritual level. Thus, he will not be held back by feelings of self-satisfaction, but will continually strive to advance forward. In this way, he will carry out the charge. There will not be a woman who loses her young or who is barren in your land. In other words, he will enable his love and fear to continue to thrive. As a result, he will receive truly abundant blessings from above, right? So it doesn't mean self-satisfaction. I want to clarify this again. Self-satisfaction doesn't mean, beat yourself up because you haven't done enough. Chas v'shalom. There's nothing in a Maamer that tells you to be negative and nasty towards yourself. What self-satisfaction means is to be so complacent because, wow, I'm already doing great. It means, okay, I did great. Now what's the next mission? You can be proud of your accomplishments, and you can be proud, and you can feel that love, and that's the goal. The goal is to feel that love towards Hashem and feel a sense of respect and awe towards Hashem. And if you're feeling that, good, amazing. It just means once we stop to say, wow, I am just so high, mighty, and I'm so, I'm awesome and amazing. And we take not even just a moment. Some people take more than a few moments to think about these things. So then that moment wasn't used in the way that it was needed to be used to do the next mission, to do the next thing that we need to do. Okay. If you need more help understanding this in context, please, you can look back at the previous classes. And also, Mitzvah Hashem, we're going to discuss it a little bit more tomorrow. So I hope everybody has a wonderfully and inspired and, you feel like you're in charge of your life because you're doing your mission. Have a good day.